The Ming Treasure Voyages, a series of 7 maritime expeditions led by the Admiral Zheng He of China between 1405 and 1433, during the reign of the Yongle Emperor of the Ming Dynasty. These voyages were monumental in scale, and they involved hundreds of ships, some of which were among the largest marine craft the world had ever seen, along with thousands of crew, of course, ranging from soldiers to sailors and diplomats to interpreters. Now, the primary objectives of these voyages were to assert Ming dominance over the Indian Ocean trade routes, expand China's tributary system, and display the might and reach of the Ming Empire to the wider world. Thus, the Admiral Zheng He traveled as far as the eastern coasts of Africa, visiting modern-day countries such as Kenya and Somalia, and his fleets called at ports throughout Southeast Asia, South Asia and the Middle East, and even to the eastern coast of Africa. These expeditions are noted for their remarkable organization and the extensive range of geographical knowledge they helped accumulate, as well as, of course, for fostering diplomatic relations and establishing Chinese presence in the regions visited. However, following the death of the Yongle Emperor, subsequent Chinese rulers took a more isolationist approach, and maritime prohibitions were enacted that halted further voyages of this kind. But regardless, the legacy lives on, but perhaps it's not something you've heard of in great detail. If that is the case, well, I will do my best to retell the story today for you. But first, let me welcome you to the channel. Is it your first time here? If it is a pleasure to meet you. And if you're coming back, it's great to have you back with me again. As always, supporting the channel is as easy as enjoying the content. If you want to go above and beyond, 2 clicks of the like and subscribe button certainly help, and beyond that, you may refer to the video description. And now, without further ado, let us begin our video for today. Now, first of all, I'm just going to say that a lot of the pronunciations, I am not going to be using the tonal system for the Mandarin pronunciations. I certainly can use it, but to keep the flow of the English language we are using, I'm just going to be running over the tonal pronunciations, so that nobody gets taken out of me speaking in a normal manner that is understandable to everybody. 反正我们现在讲英文，不是中文，是不是？所以我们现在开始吧。In either case, we are going to be speaking in English, not Chinese. So let us now begin. July 17th, 1402, Zhu Di ascended to the throne as the Yongle Emperor after his victory in the Jingnan campaign. He inherited a considerable naval legacy from his father, the Yongle Emperor, and ambitiously expanded it to support his expansive foreign policies. The Yongle Emperor's reign marked a period of militaristic and naval expansion, epitomized by the treasure voyages he initiated in 1403. Under the Yongle Emperor's orders, a massive fleet, initially referred to as the Xiafan Guanjun, or Foreign Expeditionary Armada, was constructed. The imperial records from the Taizong Shilu indicate a substantial investment in shipbuilding, with directives used to various provinces and military garrisons to construct over 2,800 ships between 1403 and 1419. The primary construction sites included the Longjiang shipyard located in the Qinhuai River and near its confluence with the Yangtze River in Nanjing. This shipyard was pivotal in building the large treasure ships that would sail on the 7 famed expeditions. Now, we must talk about Zheng He, a trusted eunuch and previously the Grand Director of the Directorate of Palace Servants, who was selected by the Yongle Emperor to command these voyages. The Emperor endowed him with significant authority, including blank scrolls bearing the imperial seal, which allowed him to issue orders as needed during these voyages, effectively signing a blank check for the admiral. Now, the fleet comprised a mix of newly constructed and converted ships, drawing heavily upon resources from the Yangtze River and its surrounding areas. The crews were largely recruited from the military, with a significant number hailing from Fujian. At the start of the Ming treasure voyages, the Chinese treasure fleet, commanded by Admiral Zheng He, would embark from the Longjiang shipyard, sailing down the Yangtze to the Liujiagang. Here, Zheng He would organize his fleet and perform sacrifices to Tianfei, the goddess revered by sailors and seafarers. The fleet would spend 4 to 8 weeks progressing slowly to the Taiping anchorage in Changle, awaiting the northeast winter monsoon, which facilitated their journey from the Fujian coast through the Wuhu Men, the 5-tiger passage of the Min River. The favorable monsoon winds were crucial, as they dictated the fleet's navigation through the South China Sea and onward to the Indian Ocean. Quai Non in Champa, modern-day Vietnam, was consistently the fleet's first international stop. This phase of the journey marked the beginning of what was termed the Western Ocean during the Ming Dynasty, a term encompassing the waters of today's South China Sea and Indian Ocean, with the boundary between the Eastern and Western Oceans often considered to be near modern-day Brunei. Thus, from 1405 to 1411, during the first 3 of Zheng He's voyages, the fleet's route was roughly the same, starting from Fujian, stopping first in Champa, and then traveling across the South China Sea to Java and Sumatra, up through the Strait of Malacca, to northern Sumatra where the fleet regrouped, then across the Indian Ocean to Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, and along the Malabar coast of India to Calicut. Initially, the fleet's exploration did not extend beyond this final stop of Calicut. On the 4th voyage, however, the fleet's reach expanded to include Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. The 5th, 6th, and 7th voyages saw the fleet venturing further into regions of the Arabian Peninsula and East Africa. Specifically, during the 6th voyage, after reaching Calicut, several squadrons branched off to explore additional destinations along the Arabian Peninsula and East Africa. The 7th and final voyage replicated this pattern, with the fleet making its way to Hormuz and beyond, as various squadrons explored different parts of the Arabian Peninsula and East African coastline. In the 3rd lunar month of 1405, from March 30 to April 28th, preparations for a significant naval expedition were set into motion by the Ming Dynasty officials. A preliminary directive was issued to Admiral Zheng He and his co-commanders to lead a substantial force of 27,000 troops on a journey to the Western Ocean. This directive was formalized by an imperial edict dated July 11th, 1405, which specifically addressed Zheng He, Wang Jinghong, and other officers, charging them with carrying imperial correspondence and lavish gifts for the rulers of various foreign lands they were to visit. On the eve of their departure, the Yongle Emperor hosted a great banquet to honor the fleet's officers and crew, distributing gifts suitable to their ranks in a gesture of boosting morale, and fostering loyalty. Well, moreover, significant religious observances were conducted, involving sacrifices and prayers to Tian Fei. Remember, that was the goddess revered by sailors for protection and guidance. Think about how the Greeks view Poseidon. It's a little bit more complex than that, but if you want to water it down to that, well, that's kind of how it was. Well, this underscores the spiritual preparations that were deemed necessary for ensuring the fleet's success and safety. We can't rightly see a group of soldiers off without saying a prayer now, can't we? Well, by autumn of the same year, 1405, the fleet had congregated in Nanjing, poised for departure. Chroniclers of the time, writing in the Taizong Shilo, confirmed that on July 11th, Zheng He's fleet embarked on its maiden voyage, equipped with imperial messages and gifts intended for all of the kings of the lands that they would visit. And they were good gifts, too. They included gold brocade, patterned silks, colored silk gauze, too, reflecting the recipient's status. But everybody got something, and the goodie bag was rather extensive. The fleet's initial stop was, of course, Liujiagang, where organizational efforts were undertaken to arrange the ships into squadrons, while continuing the religious observances to gain the favor of Tian Fei. The fleet then progressed to the Taiping anchorage in Changle, situated near the Min River, to await the favorable northeast monsoon. Here, the crew engaged in further religious ceremonies, with more prayers and more sacrifices, seeking the blessing of Tian Fei for their journey ahead. Once the monsoon winds were deemed favorable, the fleet set sail through Wuhu Men, remember, the Gate of 5 Tigers, marking the beginning of Zheng He's historic voyage. And thus, from here, Zheng He's fleet embarked on their expansive route, visiting numerous pivotal ports across the Indian Ocean. Starting from Champa, the fleet sailed to Java, Malacca, Aru, Samudera, Lambre, Ceylon, Ceylon, and finally to Calicut. The journey from Lambre to Ceylon marked a significant departure from the coastal navigation along the Bay of Bengal. Instead, the fleet sailed directly across the Indian Ocean. A notable detour occurred 3 days after departing from Lambre, when one ship branched off to explore the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Within 6 days of this split, the fleet sighted the mountains of Ceylon, arriving on its western coast 2 days later. The visit to Ceylon, however, was cut short due to the hostility from the local ruler, Alakeshvara. And by the way, if you're thinking of Ceylon tea, well, yes, it is that Ceylon. Sri Lanka, Ceylon. Remember that one for the trivia nights. It has been suggested that Zheng He might have made a port call to Ceylon, as the king of Ceylon was known to have travelled with the fleet back to China in 1407. The fleet is believed to have stayed for an extended period of 4 months in Calicut, from December 1406 to April 1407. After navigating around Cape Comorin, the southern tip of the Indian subcontinent, Zheng He's fleet redirected northward for the journey return to China, making another stop at Malacca on the way. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. See what I did there? The return trip in 1407 did have its difficulties. Zheng He's fleet encountered Chen Zuyi, a pirate leader who had taken control of Palembang, a strategic port city controlling the Malaccan Strait. The ensuing battle resulted in the defeat of Chen's forces, and upon returning to Nanjing on the 2nd of October 1407, Chen and his lieutenants were promptly executed. Their pirating days were cut short, if we may say. Well, this action not only quelled the pirate threat, but also reinforced Ming control over the region. It also scared all of the other pirates away. Now, the Ming court then installed Shi Qin as the pacification superintendent of Palembang, ensuring a friendly administration in the strategically vital port. Upon their return to Nanjing on the same day, the treasure fleet brought back envoys from various nations, ranging from Calicut, Ceylon, Samudera, Aru, and Malacca. These foreign dignitaries visited the Ming court, paying homage and presenting tribute from their respective lands. And in response, the Yongle Emperor, demonstrating the Ming Dynasty's commitment to fostering international relations, directed the Ministry of Rites to prepare reciprocal gifts for the kings who had sent these envoys, thereby cementing diplomatic ties and enhancing trade connections with these distant regions. And now on to the second voyage. The first voyage went pretty well, don't you think? Well, not for the pirates. The second voyage of Zheng He's treasure fleet was initiated by an imperial order issued in October of 1407, directed to Zheng He, Wang Jinghong, and Hou Xian. Historical records, including Lang Ying's Qi Xiu Lei Gao and the Taizong Shilong, detail that the fleet was to visit an expansive list of destinations, including Calicut, Malacca, Samudera, and reaching past the previous areas. We had new additions, such as Siam, Abu Badan, Lambri, and Ganbali, distant kingdoms far, far away. Thus, the fleet set out from Nanjing, making stops at Liujiagang and Changle before proceeding for a broad sweep of ports across Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. Notable was the omission of Ceylon from the itinerary of this voyage. A specific mission of this voyage was the formal investiture of Mana Vikran as the King of Calicut, which underscored the diplomatic and ceremonial importance of the fleet's journeys. Additionally, a tablet was placed in Calicut to commemorate the strengthening relationship between China and India. A significant incident addressed during this voyage was the resolution of certain tensions between Ming China and Java. The background involved a tragic misunderstanding during a civil war on Java, that's modern-day Indonesia, one of these islands, between 1401 and 1406, where the king of West Java was responsible for the deaths of 170 Chinese embassy members. This error was later acknowledged by the Javanese ruler, who sent an envoy to the Ming court to admit guilt and offer reparations. Well, the Ming court demanded 60,000 liang worth of gold as compensation. severe consequences of non-compliance by referencing Ming China's military actions in Annam, which is the old name for Vietnam, one of the parts of it. Ultimately, the Javanese rulers' compliance led to the restoration of diplomatic relations, with the Ming Emperor eventually forgiving a significant portion of the debt as a gesture of leniency towards the remorseful Javanese ruler. This resolution showed the Ming Dynasty's preference for diplomatic solutions and their strategic use of Zheng He's voyages to enforce and demonstrate Ming power across the region. Thus it was not just a display of China's naval capabilities and reach, but also maintaining surveillance and asserting Ming influence over critical maritime regions like Java. Thus, during the second voyage of Zheng He's treasure fleet, there is evidence that the fleet visited Pulau Sembilan in the Strait of Malacca in 1409, during the 7th year of the Yongle reign. The historian Fei Xin provides a detailed account of this visit, noting that Zheng He and his associates dispatched government troops to the island to harvest incense wood. They managed to obtain 6 large logs of a highly aromatic wood, which greatly amazed the local inhabitants. Fei's description vividly captures the interaction, portraying the Ming soldiers as almost mythical figures, described as soldiers of the heavenly god, whose presence awed and amazed the islanders. The timing of this visit and the details of the fleet's itinerary have led to a little bit of confusion regarding Zheng He's participation in this second voyage. The historical record indicates that an envoy was sent ahead of Zheng's departure with the main fleet. Moreover, an imperial edict for the third voyage was issued while the fleet was still in the Indian Ocean, raising questions about Zheng's presence during these events. January 21st, 1409. On this day, a significant ceremonial event in honor of the goddess Tian Fei took place, suggesting that Zheng might have been required to attend due to the ceremony's importance. And, well, you wouldn't want to miss out on a good party, wouldn't you? The conflicting information has led historians to debate Zheng's involvement in the second voyage. Some suggest that Zheng could not have been part of this voyage at all, saying that his presence was necessary at the Tianfei ceremony. Similarly, others concur that Zheng did not accompany the fleet. However, there is one Edward Dreyer who offers a counterpoint, arguing from Fei Xin's account that Zheng's involvement in the visit to Palau Sembilan strongly suggests that he was indeed on the second voyage. Either way, in the first month of the 7th year of the Yongle reign, so 16th of January to 14th of February 1409, an imperial order was issued for the third voyage of Zheng He's treasure fleet. This order, addressed to Zheng He, Wang Jinghong, and Hou Xian, marked the official commencement of the expedition. Zheng embarked on this significant voyage later that year. Once again, the fleet departed from Liujiagang between the 9th of October and 6th of November 1409, later arriving at Changle the following month. They left Changle in the 12th month. That was about the 5th of January to the 3rd of February 1410, making their way through the Wuhu Men. Now I will just quickly remind you that the Chinese, even up to this day, use a lunar calendar, and it gets a little bit confusing sometimes, but I'll try to put both dates on where I can. Now, their journey included stops at several key maritime hubs, including Champa, Malacca, Samudera, Ceylon, and all of the usual suspects. The fleet reached Champa within 10 days of departure from Yongle, and during their journey, Wang Jinghong and Hou Xian made brief detours to places like Siam, Malacca, Samudera, and Ceylon. Now there was a significant event of this voyage that occurred during their stay in Ceylon in 1410. The fleet's interaction with King Alakshvara of Ceylon marked a pivotal moment of the voyage. The Chinese perceived the Sinhalese as overbearing and frankly disrespectful. Their words, not mine, and they attributed the hostility and piracy against neighboring nations friendly to Ming China to the Sinhalese. They thought it was all their fault. Well, the tension escalated when Zheng He and 2,000 of his troops were lured into Kotte, the capital city of Ceylon, and separated from their fleet, which was anchored at Colombo. Alakshvara planned a surprise attack on the fleet, but in a turn of events, Zheng and his troops invaded Kotte and captured the city, along with Alakshvara, his family, and principal officials. Now we do have a chronicler, Yang Rong, who wrote of the conflict in 1515, and here's what Yang Rong wrote. Straight away, their dens and hideouts were ravaged, and we made captive that entire country, bringing back to our august capital their women, children, families, and retainers, leaving not one, cleaning out in a single sweep those noxious pests, as if winnowing chaff from the grain, these insignificant worms, deserving to die 10,000 times over, trembling in fear. They did not merit the punishment of heaven. Thus the august emperor spared their lives, and they humbly bowed down, making crude sounds and praising the sage-like virtue of the imperial Ming ruler. Yang Rong, 1515. Well, tell us what you really think, Yang Rong. Pretty harsh. Well, the fleet's return to Nanjing on the 6th of July in 1411 marked the end of the third voyage. Upon their return, Zheng presented the captured Sinhalese to the Yongle Emperor, who decided that, well, they'd suffered enough already. He released them and returned them to Ceylon. Pretty good luck for the Sinhalese, I would say. I think if they were in the Ming Dynasty, they would not have received this treatment. I'll teach you all about the Ming Dynasty later on. That was an interesting one, to say the least. This act of magnanimity was accompanied by a significant political move. The Chinese dethroned Alakshvara and installed their ally Parakrambahu as a new king. Zheng He's fleet supported this transition, ensuring stability and friendly relations during subsequent visits to Ceylon. Now, for the fourth voyage, which, on December the 18th, 1412, the Yongle Emperor issued a directive for the treasure fleet to depart, commanding Zheng He and others to lead it again. The voyage, noted for extending into Muslim countries, showed the importance of securing reliable interpreters to facilitate interactions. Thus, in preparation, Zheng He sought out Hassan, a proficient Arabic speaker, in Xi'an in April of 1413. Xi'an, by the way, is the city where the terracotta warriors are. You've got to take a bus about an hour out, or maybe a car for half an hour. It's well worth a visit. Hassan's skills, of course, would prove invaluable during the expedition. Thus the fleet embarked from Nanjing in the autumn of 1413, setting sail from Fujian in December of the same year. The journey expanded beyond Calicut, the westernmost point reached in all of the previous expeditions, and the itinerary included numerous strategic and trade-rich stops across Southeast Asia and beyond, into the Persian Gulf and the Maldives. Significant stops included Champa again, Pahang, Malacca, Java, Samudera, and Ceylon again, but they also went to Jiayi, which is directly across from Ceylon. The fleet also visited Cochin and Calicut, key trade centers in India. Further on, they explored the Maldives, Bitra Atoll, Chetlat Atoll, and Hormuz. In Java, Zheng's delegation delivered gifts from the Yongle Emperor, reinforcing diplomatic ties and the stature of the Ming Dynasty in the region. The Javanese response was equally gracious, with envoys arriving in China on April 29, 1415, bearing tributes of Western horses and local products, a testament to the deepening relationships fostered by these maritime expeditions. During the homeward leg of their 1415 voyage, Zheng He's fleet made a critical stop in northern Sumatra. There, a political upheaval had placed Sikander on the throne of Samudera, having usurped it from Zayn al-Abidin, whom the Ming Dynasty had formally recognized as king. This change disrupted the stability and alignments that China fostered in the region. The Ming fleet, under Zheng He's command, was ordered to undertake a punitive expedition to dethrone the usurper Sikander and restore Zayn al-Abidin. The ensuing battle saw Sikander's considerable forces, reportedly numbering tens of thousands, decisively defeated by the Ming troops. The conflict did not end with the battle, however. The Ming forces pursued the fleeing Sikander to Lambri, capturing him along with his family. Oh, and take the number of tens of thousands of troops with a grain of salt. It comes from the Ming sources, and, well, they may have blown it a little bit out of proportion. Either way, they still won, so there's that. Well, the restored king Zayn al-Abidin expressed his gratitude by sending a tribute mission to the Ming court, reinforcing the tributary relationship that underpinned Ming diplomatic trade strategies. This intervention by the Ming fleet not only reinstated a favorable ruler, but it also demonstrated the Ming's willingness and capability to exert military power to safeguard its interests, albeit this was usually a last resort for them. Well, following the resolution of this conflict, Sikander was taken to Nanjing, where he was presented to the Yongle Emperor, and, well, he didn't get away like the Sinhalese did. He was executed. Historical accounts vary in their portrayal of Sikander, with some describing him as a tyrannical usurper, and others as an ambitious relative of the former king, who sought power at any cost. The fleet concluded its journey, and returned to Nanjing on August 12, 1415. However, the Yongle Emperor was absent, engaged in his military campaign against the Mongols since March 16, 1413, and had not yet returned. Despite the emperor's absence, the successful expedition reinforced Ming China's influence over its trade routes and political entities along them. Envoys from 18 different countries arrived at the Ming court with tributes, another testament to the extensive reach and impact of Zheng He's voyages. Well, November 1416. Following his return to Nanjing, the Yongle Emperor celebrated his arrival with great fanfare on November 19th, presenting gifts to a diverse group of attendees that included princes, civil and military officials, and ambassadors from 18 countries. The ceremony highlighted the emperor's largesse and the Ming Dynasty's extensive diplomatic network. Later, on December 28th, a significant departure ceremony took place, where the ambassadors were honored with robes, marking the prelude to the 5th treasure voyage, officially decreed on the same day. The primary mission of this voyage was to escort the ambassadors back to their home countries and present gifts to their monarchs as a gesture of goodwill and to solidify diplomatic ties further. Zheng He, back in action once again, was charged with transporting these dignitaries and of course delivering the lavish gifts, including a notable inscription and a ceremonial seal to the King of Cochin, who had been a consistent tributary since 1411. The fleet likely set sail in the autumn of 1417, initially docking at Quanzhou to load valuable cargoes of porcelain and other goods intended for trade and gifts. The scope of this voyage was ambitious, reaching the farthest ports yet, including stops in Southeast Asia, the Arabian Peninsula, and the East African coast. We're talking as far as Aden, Mogadishu, and even Malindi, and that's a long, long way from home. Historical records from the region, such as the Tari al-Yaman, confirmed the fleet's presence along the Aden coast by January 1419. The fleet returned to China on August 8, 1419, and despite the Yongle Emperor's absence in Beijing, the Ministry of Rights was instructed to reward the fleet's personnel financially, indicating the imperial acknowledgement of their service and the successful completion of their mission. Job well done. The tribute brought back by the ambassadors, including exotic animals such as lions, leopards, and giraffes, caused a sensation at the Ming court, showing the cultural and biological diversity of the lands within the fleet's reach. You imagine, all those years ago, they bring back these things beyond your wildest dreams, beyond your deepest imaginations, and there they are, right in front of you. It's hard not to think that they would be very taken back by this. Well, of course, this display didn't just serve to enrich the Ming Dynasty's knowledge of foreign wildlife. It was mainly there to demonstrate the extent of its maritime capabilities and the broad scope of its international relations. As the capital moved to Beijing in early 1420, the Yongle Emperor planned a grand celebration for the following year, inviting all foreign envoys to the new capital. Everybody is welcome, and they were going to have a big party. Thus, on the 3rd day of March, in the year 1421, as recorded in the Taizong Shilo, an imperial directive was issued, dispatching envoys from 16 nations, including Hormuz, bearing gifts such as paper and coin money, ceremonial robes and linings. These envoys were to be escorted back to their respective lands by the majestic Chinese treasure fleet. The same date marked the imperial command for the 6th voyage, for which Zheng He was entrusted with delivering imperial letters and gifts including silk brocade, silk floche, and silk gauze to the rulers of these nations. This grand fleet eventually headed to Malacca, and the Sumatran states of Lambi, Aru, and Samudera were divided into several squadrons. From Samudera, the detachments ventured to various destinations, including Ceylon, Jaila, Cochin, Ganbali, and Calicut in southern India. The squadrons then dispersed even further to places like Liaoshan, Maldives and the Laccadive Islands, the Persian Gulf's Hormuz, and the Arabian states of Dhofar, Lhasa and Aden, and then on to the African states of Mogadishu and Brava. A noteworthy detachment under the eunuch Zhou Man visited Aden and possibly Lhasa and Dhofar as well. Zheng He's personal involvement is highlighted in his visit to Gun Bali, marking it as a unique instance among the 12 nations visited west of Sumatra. While the main body of the fleet advanced from Calicut to Hormuz, other squadrons, after separating near Ceylon, journeyed to Mogadishu and other smaller destinations. The fleet's return voyage included a stop at Calicut, where several squadrons regrouped before reassembling at Samudera. They likely visited Siam during this homeward leg, eventually returning to China on the 3rd of September 1422. Bringing with them envoys from regions such as Siam, Samudera, and Aden, these dignitaries bore tributes of local products and proceeded overland or via the Grand Canal to the imperial court in Beijing, arriving in 1423. An additional event of note is reported in the Tari al-Yaman on the 31st of January 1423, when the Sultan of the Rasulid dynasty in Taiz prepared to receive a Chinese delegation in February, highlighting a vibrant exchange of goods. And this encounter shows that several Chinese vessels from the treasure fleet had chosen to extend their stay beyond their usual return to China. On the 14th of May, 1421, the Yongle Emperor decreed a halt to the renowned treasure voyages, reallocating the empire's resources and attention towards military campaigns against the Mongols. As a result, from 1422 to 1431, the majestic Chinese treasure fleet was stationed in Nanjing, repurposed to bolster the city's garrison. And in the year 1424, amidst these shifting priorities, Zheng He embarked on a diplomatic mission to Palembang. However, significant changes were unfolding back home in China. Following the death of the Yongle Emperor on the 12th of August 1424, his son Zhou Gaozhi ascended to the throne as the Yongle Emperor on September 7th of the same year. It was after the passing of his father that Zheng He returned from Palembang. The new Yongle Emperor held a less favorable view of the treasure voyages. On the very day of his ascension, he officially ceased all further expeditions. Nonetheless, he did maintain the fleet, and he repurposed it to serve as a garrison in Nanjing. It wasn't like he just lit everything on fire. Well, on the 24th of February 1425, Zheng He was appointed as the defender of Nanjing, tasked with the commanding of the fleet to ensure the city's defense. The Yongle Emperor's reign, however, well, that was short-lived, as he passed away on the 29th of May 1425, and he was succeeded by his eldest son, Zhu Jianji, who became the Xuande Emperor. Now the Xuande Emperor chose to uphold his father's policies regarding the treasure fleet, keeping it as a part of Nanjing's defensive framework. Additionally, on the 25th of March 1428, he tasked Zheng He and others with overseeing the reconstruction and repairs of the great Bao'en Temple in Nanjing. The project reached completion in 1431, and it is speculated that the funds for this undertaking might have been redirected from those originally allocated to the treasure voyages. On the 25th of May, 1430, An imperial directive recorded by Gong Zhen mandated the provisioning for an ambitious undertaking. Zheng He, along with Wang Jinghong, Li Xing, Zhu Liang, and others, were tasked for an official mission to the Western Ocean. It's back on, boys. Let's do it. This order reached Yangqing, Luozhi, Tang Guanbo, and Yuancheng, setting the stage for a seventh treasure voyage, officially ordered by the Yongle Emperor on the 29th of June 1430. Now the Xuanzong Shiluo reflects on this expedition's purpose: to extend China's influence to distant lands, ensuring their deference and reinvigorating tributary relations, first fostered under the Yongle Emperor. Now detailed in chronicles of the time, the journey's intricate itinerary began on the 19th of January 1431 from Longwan, or Dragon Bay, in Nanjing. By the 23rd, the fleet reached Shushan, an unidentified island in the Yangtze River, with a crew engaged in hunting. Progressing through the Fuzi Passage, now known as the Baimaosha Channel, by the 2nd of February, they reached Liujiagang the following day. On the 8th of April, the fleet made its way to Changle, and by mid-December to Fudoshan, likely near modern-day Fuzhou. The following year, the fleet navigated through Wuhuman at the entrance to the Min River, on January the 12th, arriving at Vijaya in Champa by January the 27th. After leaving Vijaya in mid-February, they reached Surabaya in Java by early March, remaining there until mid-July. The subsequent stops included Palembang, from where they departed after a brief stay, followed by Malacca, and then Samudera, with each leg of the journey marked by strategic engagements and brief layovers. The fleet's journey continued to Beruala in Ceylon, arriving by the end of November, and swiftly moved on to Calicut by early December. By January 1433, the fleet had reached Hormuz, a crucial node in their expansive maritime network, and after nearly 2 months, they concluded their stay and continued on their path. During the expansive 7th voyage, detailed in the Xiaxiyang, Hormuz stood as the most westerly of the 8 destinations documented. However, comprehensive accounts like the Ming Shi expanded this scope significantly, suggesting that the fleet visited at least 17 countries, and these included locations not only specified in the Xiaxiyang, but also additional locales such as Bengal, the Maldives, Mecca, and Brava. Gong Zhen's records indicate that a number of countries visited may have reached up to 20. Well, the Xiaxiyang Chronicles details the route and significant dates of the 7th voyage's return leg. Departing from Hormuz on the 9th of March 1433, the Chinese treasure fleet made its way to Calicut, arriving on the 31st of March. A brief stop ensued before setting sail on the 9th of April across the vast ocean to reach Samudera by the 25th of April, departing shortly thereafter on the 1st of May. By the 9th of May, the fleet was anchored in Malacca and reached the Kunlun Ocean by the 28th of May. Subsequently, they arrived in Vijaya, present-day Qinnon, on the 13th of June, and resumed their voyage on the 17th. Following their passage, the fleet arrived at Taicang on the 7th of July. The documentation in the Xiaxiyang omits details of the journey from Taicang to the capital, however, It is noted, though, that the fleet arrived in Beijing on the 22nd of July, 1433. By the 27th, the Yongle Emperor honored the fleet's personnel with ceremonial robes and paper money, a token of recognition for their successful expedition. It has been suggested that the main fleet briefly stayed in Calicut, and the fleet's detached squadrons had likely already assembled there for the homeward journey. Their route back did not include stops at Ceylon or southern India due to the advantageous southwest monsoon propelling their sail. Once regrouped, Ma notes that the various detached ships assembled in Malacca, awaiting favorable winds to continue their homeward journey. The strategic patience facilitated a smoother return voyage. Upon their return, the fleet was accompanied by envoys from 11 different countries, including Mecca. As recorded in the Shansong Shilu on the 14th of September 1433, a diverse array of ambassadors arrived at the court to present their tributes. These included Haile Jehan, the younger brother of King Zayn al-Abidin of Samudera, and Gebu Manduluya, the ambassador from King Bilimar of Calicut, including many other ambassadors and members from different countries, all converging to pay their tributes. Additionally, Abd al-Rahman represented the king of Old Kayal, being Jai-Le, and the headman Shashian represented the king of Mecca. Certainly a rich tapestry of international relations, fostered by years of maritime endeavors. Throughout the early 15th century, the treasure voyages under the Yongle Emperor elevated Ming China to the pinnacle of naval dominance. These expeditions extended imperial sway across distant lands. However, by 1433, this expansive seafaring initiative came to an abrupt halt, and Ming China retreated from its naval endeavors. As for Admiral Zheng He, well, his death is marked as either 1433 or 35, coinciding closely with the cessation of the voyages. Despite the discontinuation of these state-sponsored expeditions, trade across the eastern maritime routes continued to thrive. Chinese merchants maintained a strong presence in the trade networks of East Asia, India, and East Africa. Over time, the robust imperial tributary system that had regulated foreign commerce began to slowly deteriorate, giving way to burgeoning private trade that gradually eclipsed the centralized state control. Well, thank you very much for listening. Bit of a different video today, wasn't it? I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're still listening right now, there's a good chance that you did. I'd like to thank my top-tier patrons, Scott, Aaron, James, Tim, Jeffrey, JC, Stark Factory, and Charles. And I'd like to thank you once more for listening and joining me today. And I'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. I hope I'll see you again. Good night, my friend.